Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're so glad that you're with us. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors. If you're just joining us, we're talking about people that were upset because the developer in a high-rise condo development told certain people that they would have these gorgeous vistas, only to find out a couple years later another building was put next door that took away all those. That
blocked their windows.
All of them.
And by the same developer.
By the same developer. That's the part
so we're
that
talking about what's legal, what's not legal, and pretty much in real estate. And I tell people this. I tell my staff this all the time. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. If you even when I'm showing apartments to people, we say in our lease, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So I'll tell people, if you think I told you could park your 6 snowmobiles and your 4 horses behind the building while I was showing you this apartment, if it's not written in your lease, that didn't happen. So please read the lease.
And the difference, Tony, is that with a lease agreement, you can have a oral agreement, a verbal one,
and
that's
lease
considered
in
legal.
Minnesota as long as it is not for more than a year, and as long as your property has 11 or fewer units, it can have a verbal. You can have a verbal agreement. Outside of that, it has to be in writing. Yeah.
But a good management company is not going to do it because. The last thing you want is anything that's open to vagaries.
Well, that's right, because the next thing you know, you've got someone saying, hey, you promised me I would have a view of the city skyline, and the neighbor built a building that blocks my view, so I went out of my lease. I went out of my purchase.
In the purchase of real property, of real estate, it is, again, the law anywhere
under any circumstances.
In all 50 of these states.
Yes.
That you do not have a contract unless it is in writing.
That's right. There are no verbal agreements. That's right. You know, this comes up in homeowner associations. I'm thinking of one several years ago, and I can't remember who was managing the property, but it came across my desk. Owners were really, really angry, these townhome owners, because they purchased their townhome because it was near the pond. Well, guess what? That wasn't a pond. That was a rainwater catch basin. So one summer comes along where there's no rain, the water disappears, and there's no pond. They felt that they had been dealt with unfairly because they were told by the realtor when they purchased that it was a pond.
Because it was referred to as a pond,
That's
but
right.
it
right.
wasn't.
That's right. So things like that can happen.
Yeah, it does. So you can't rely on things that are verbal.
No.
You need to take a look at what's in writing. That's why, as we were talking about before break, it is so important to take a look at the resale disclosure documents. And let's talk about that a little bit. What are some of the things that people are going to be looking at? What's going to come into their hands?
Anyone who sells any type of home has to provide a seller's disclosure for the buyer. If it's a home in a homeowners association, there's a second disclosure, a resale disclosure or a sales disclosure from the homeowners association that tells you what's going on in that community. So people should be looking for things like rules and regulations that are going to affect their residency.
So, and that's good, the way you describe that disclosure document, because you're right. When a seller sells a home, they're given by their realtor several pages to fill out about what's happened with the roofs,
the condition
of the house.
Yes.
Because in an association, the homeowner doesn't have control of some of those elements, and those are being done by the association as a whole.
Sure.
That's why you turn to the association to fill out a portion of that.
And plus, you're ruled by that association. There's rules and regulations that go beyond just the maintenance of the home.
Right. So
you need to know what their pet policy is. If you've got a Great Dane and you find out, you should check the disclosure to see if that's allowable. You may find out that there's a limit on the size of dogs. You can't have a dog over 30 pounds.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got the governing documents, which will include covenants. It's going to include the bylaws, rules, and regulations that are going to let people know what they can't do, how things relate. But then there's other pieces of information that are just as important that people don't look at. One is financial reports.
Oh, good point. There should be financial statements included with that disclosure, right?
Oh, yeah.
And one of the most important things to look for is, do they have adequate reserve funds?
Yes. Are they putting money aside? Have they actually planned for the replacement of those big ticket items?
Yep.
You want to take a look at minutes from board meetings.
Sure.
You want to take a look at newsletters because is there some notice in there saying that the board's been talking about a special assessment and it's going to take place next month?
There you go. It may not be legally required that they disclose that to you today, but you certainly want to know if it's coming up in the near future.
Well, yeah, you can, because it doesn't happen until the board makes the decision.
That's
until
right.
then, it's just being talked about.
That's right.
So yes, but that's information you should know.
Yeah.
And how about this? People ought to take a look at things with the city in the home where they live too.
Like, what are you thinking of?
Well, they can take a look. Are they concerned for crime? They can get police reports. How about zoning laws? Do they know how things are zoned? How about the zone for the properties right next to them? I had one person who bought a home a number of years ago, and they had a couple of other homes right next to them. However, if they had gone and checked, they would have found out that those homes next to them were zoned commercial.
Oh.
And so that could make a difference,
Sure.
because it looks nice now. It's all a residence, but a couple years from now, that could change.
Someone may buy that property and put a business
And then
in there.
is that what you're looking for?
Sure.
How about taking a look with the city with inspections, permits. There's a number of things. If people had done some of that checking in the case of this 12 high-rise condo, they would have found out that permits were already in place.
Had already been pulled to build this huge tower next door.
And it makes you wonder sometimes why people won't take the time to do that. It's money well spent if you have an attorney take a look at some of this for you, because it's true. You as a homeowner may not wish to wade through all of that, but this is going to be conceivably the biggest purchase of anybody's life, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, for most of us.
Yeah, and so you don't want to just lose that just because you didn't take the time,
right? And
you can't come back and say, but the realtor told me.
Yeah, that does not wash.
No, but boy, that's the argument we always hear.
Oh, we hear it a lot. We do.
Yeah.
We do.
So anyway, that is the story of the high-rise condo owners who lost. And you know what? I'm sorry for them. I really am. I think it was a
I'd be
disservice.
mad. I'd be mad if it happened to me.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's take a look and begin with another story. And I tell you what, I'm going to do a little difference here in order here.
Okay.
Because we've got someone who will be coming on the show in just a little bit. But let's go with this California bill that's going to impact rental restrictions.
In homeowners associations.
In homeowner associations,
right.
Yeah. This is out of California, folks. Senate Bill 150. There's an impact on rental restrictions. And tell me what you think of this premise, Tony. It says the person who wrote this said associations have traditionally encountered problems with renters in their communities because renters do not have an ownership interest in their units in the association. They may feel less invested in the community. Do you think because someone doesn't own that they have less of an investment or they care any less?
I think that's possible. The next sentence, though, is the one I really disagree with. This often results in renters failing to comply with the rules or to properly adhere to the rules. Homeowners associations boards say this, members say this all the time. Well, a renter's not going to care about the property as much as I do. And so they're not going to be good neighbors. I don't want them here in this association. The truth of the matter is, a renter is much more regulated than you are if the unit is properly managed as a rental. It's not the fact it's a renter in there. It's the problems arise because it's not being well managed.
Yep. I agree. But anyway, this was the premise to kind of set up why they have this Bill 150 and what it's going to do on impacting rentals in associations. But I tell you what, let's take a break by looking at the clock. We need to do that right now. When we come back, we're going to dig into this and see what is actually being said and proposed, and we'll ask the question, will it work? That's only right here on Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280 The Patriot. Back after this.